And roll over onto one side. And then come up to seated. So have your toes tucked under. So as you're seated on your knees and you press your weight back into your heels for fire toes, you could keep your weight forward on your hands. You could sit up, lifting your hips up away from your heels, but lean back so that there is the sensation of opening in your feet with your toes tucked under. The third option would be to sit your weight onto your heels. So it depends on how it feels in your knees, in your hips. If you feel like your baby toe doesn't quite go tucked under, you can bring it tucked under. And then extend your arms out in front. You can cross your right arm underneath your left arm for eagle arms. So if you're doing the version with your hands down on the mat, you could cross your elbows still. If you're in eagle arms, you can lift your elbows up, press your hands forwards, pull your shoulder blades down and back. And settle into your even breath pattern. So you might start to notice sensation rising in your toes and your legs. So if it's a sensation that you would term as pain or it's pinching, then you could uncross your arms, bring your hands down to the mat and tap your toes. But if it's a sensation that is sort of intense, but you can come back to your breath, you can take it in without sort of pushing it away and see what it's like to stay. We'll take 2 more breaths with our arms crossed in this way. And then release your arms and cross the other way. So left arm underneath your right arm, whether you're in eagle arms or your hands are on the mat and your arms are crossed in that way. You deepen into your breath. And if you notice heat rising, it's very common for your body to warm up when you're in this shape. So our whole body is connected, we know that, right? One way that it's connected is through the connective tissue known as fascia. And this binds every part of our body together. And so when we affect one part, like this, we're focusing on our toes here, on the soles of our feet. It affects the whole back line of our body all the way up to the crown of our heads. So if you need to come out and tap your toes, you can do that for a couple of breaths. And then come back in for 5 more breaths. After you've completed your 5 breaths, unbind your arms, bring your hands to the mat if they're not already there, and tap the tops of your toes on the mat to increase the circulation, the flow of blood. Obviously, we didn't fully cut off the flow of blood, but there was some constriction. And then with your toes untucked, we'll come back to seated kneeling. So again, you might be hips up. You might sit on a block if it doesn't work for your knees to sit onto your heels. You might sit back onto your heels, or maybe your knees work in such a way where you can sit between your heels. So lots of options. You can try them out. Make sure that you're settled. There isn't pain in your knees. And this time, bring your hands behind your back, interlace your fingers, and roll your shoulders back. Lift up through the crown of your head. And focus on your breath, your inhales and your exhales relatively the same length. And can you notice what's happening on the different layers of yourself? And try and give it all equal space. And another 3 breaths. And release your hands and give them a little shake side to side. And then forwards and back. And again, side to side. And forwards and back. And you lift up onto hands and knees. Slowly. Walk your knees back a little bit. Tuck your toes under. Lift your hips. And we'll come into a forward fold. So you can have your feet spaced hip width distance or a little bit wider. You bend your knees. Reach for opposite elbows. And let your head hang heavy. You might move a little bit back and forth, noticing where the weight is in your feet.